Hello, everyone, and welcome to the House of Royale, episode 25. Poison Ivy has arrived. She has her doctorate. She is a singer, dancer, author, and whatever issue you have, honey, she's going to flip the script and make it all better. Everyone, please welcome magical vixen pop diva songstress Samantha Harte. We have Ricky here with us today as our audience member.
Love it.
It is so fabulous to have you here. This is round 2.
It feels so good to be back, you guys, even though you've never seen me before.
Tell us what you're wearing.
This dress is by Retrofet, which was basically this really cool clothing company that was advertising to me on Instagram, and I fell for their dirty tricks. Never purchased anything, and then I went to New York Fashion Week and literally was in Soho and walked by the store and was like, stop the press. I'm going in. And this dress was part of my wardrobe.
Speaking of stop the press, do you remember Prince? Since you and Ricky are fans of music from 100 years ago. Prince produced the soundtrack for the original Batman. And there's a song in there that's like, stop the press, Vicky Vale. And it's like Vicky Vale comes out and she's just like this hot, sexy. Who played Vicky Vale?
Girl, I don't even know. So now who's aging who? Okay.
Well, because my mom used it for a dance studio mix. So that's the only reason why I know it. But oh my God, you could totally be Vicky Vale meets Poison Ivy, who was also in Batman. You're just like the Batman girl tonight. I love it.
I love it. I'm definitely here to cause trouble.
I love it. Yes. We are in our villain eras, but we're also in our healing eras, which we're going to just immediately do a deep dive into all of the things because we have to go to a red carpet like right now.
Right now. Like this second. We're late. We're already late to the red carpet.
You have your doctorate in physical therapy. Mm-hmm. You are just this educated professor, author, miracle worker. However, the way that I met you is not what you guys would think. I met Samantha at a pop music show, and she was one of the singers performing live as a pop singer. Can you please explain how all of this occurred?
I know, isn't that funny? So apparently I'm Benjamin buttoning my career. I'm totally going in reverse. Like most people are like, let me be an artist. And then when the industry literally kills me, I'll just go and get my degree. But no, this girl was like, hey, industry, I'm interested in you at 19 and 20, but also I'm really interested in cocaine. So I'm going to do that instead. And then when that almost kills me, I'm going to play it really, really safe because I'm super smart. And I'm going to do what my mom told me to do, which is get my degree. And I got a fancy doctorate and became a physical therapist, which was deeply fulfilling once I opened my own practice and did it the way it should be done, which is like whole body, whole person care for 1 hour straight with each patient, which is the only way I've ever practiced. Very proud to say that I have never, ever had more than one patient at one time. However, first, the pandemic changed everything because one by one, people who were renting space from me didn't have to rent space anymore because nobody was coming in. And then I had less and less clients, but some of them went on the computer and I was doing all this really cool strength and conditioning work, some private dance lessons. I slid dance in there a little bit, but for the most part, my creative life went somewhere else to die inside of me. And I thought I had made peace with that. And then on March 13th of 2022, which is last year, so it's extremely fresh, I got the kind of phone call that you have nightmares about receiving and is one of those play out the worst case scenario and then remind yourself that the likelihood of that happening is so rare so that you can pull yourself back from the ledge of fear. But no.
Okay, wait, pause. Before we get into that part of the story, just to clarify for you guys, Samantha, I have taken class from her, and it's so true how you treat your students. And I started teaching at 14. Dance was my life until I was pretty much like 19, 20, with training from the best teachers in the US. And just taking 2 or 3 classes from you, hearing the way that you speak to your students, the language that you use, it's literally so eye-opening. Just the small little tidbits of facts that you throw at us about the spine, and because like in ballet, it's all about tucking under and all that. Da 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 da. So I want you guys to know what an amazing teacher Samantha is. But also, when I met you, I was like, did you used to be in the Pussycat Dolls? So like, it's just so clear. Both sides of you are so like clarified and bright to the world. Like you can just tell that you have the right brain and the left brain, and it's beautiful. Okay, now I lost my mom to suicide, and in the process, the relationships with my immediate family have disintegrated, and the holidays are really the worst time for me and for people like us who have been through this. You lost your sister, and let's get into that. All right, here we go.
I was at the Austin airport with my husband. We decided we would visit to see if we would buy a rental property. A really exciting time where we actually had enough money to even be having that conversation. We had never been to Austin, and we almost bought something, and we were like, we're being a little impulsive. So we're sitting there in the airport, flying back to LA to see our kids. And I have this number calling me on repeat. And I'm like, I don't recognize this. It's probably spam. And then it was a text saying, Sam, this is Vanessa. And I knew immediately that my sister was dead. I knew immediately because Vanessa was no good for her, period. And the only other time she had reached out was in that last year when things were clearly taking a nosedive for my sister. And it was very, very clear to me. And by the way, I'm 14 years sober, trying to extend my hand again and again to save her life, and really knowing my powerlessness and watching her fall away from the attempt at sobriety for the second or third time, and it being so frightening. I mean, seeing photographs of her face bludgeoned, her lip and teeth cracked. She got a nose job to fix her face. And Vanessa reached out to me during that time. So did a lot of people, begging me to do something, not knowing that I had been trying for 20 years to save her. And so when Vanessa said, Sam, it's Vanessa, I just wrote, please no. Like, please don't tell me this is happening. And so when that happened, I wailed like a dying animal on the airport floor, and don't remember anything about the flight back. Got on a plane the next day, and apparently said to my husband, I'm writing a book, which is something I had always wanted to do. But I think a lot of people want to do that and never do it, or never know what they'd ever even write about, or never know what would be the impetus to get them to start writing. But I really meant it. And I also knew within the days and weeks to follow, which were literally the worst days and weeks of my life, when I tell you, like, I hope I never see again, and nobody ever has to see the kind of when I went back east that I had to see, because I was the one cleaning out her apartment, which is where she died. Everything changed. So even though I had this wonderful private practice in Santa Monica, real bougie, I'm a doctor, everything's super fancy, I felt like this had been happening for a while, but this moment was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I could not be with a patient and unsee the soul sickness in them. What does that mean? That means every human on earth in my opinion, is soul sick to some degree, suffering from something to some degree. In my case, it went all the way to a cocaine addiction that almost killed me. But 14 years sober, sometimes it looks like, I don't know, fantasizing about running off into some other life with some other person, or starving myself so I disappear when my dad died. You name it, there's all kinds of levels of severity of emotional addiction. So when a patient would come to me and they would have knee pain, at that point, 10 plus years into my practice, I could give them the most thorough, the most integrated, progressive, scientifically backed program for their knee pain to go away. But still, if they were addicted to thinness, to productivity, to martyrdom, it was all going to get in the way of their knee pain getting better. And so basically, I changed as a human being on that day, as death will do to people. And I could no longer do that work in the world. And I didn't stop cold turkey, but I stopped pretty drastically. And I ultimately, within 6 months, subleased my space out. And it's currently subleased to a meditation center. And I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And what happened to me is that as I was writing, and it's a, self-help memoir. So it's the doctor in me that was rewiring people's nervous systems for a decade, making their brain and muscle tissue reconnect with one another after atrophy, non-use, injury. And the sober woman in me that now had to try to survive this gross loss and had already survived a really tumultuous childhood, a 5-year extramarital affair with my husband, multiple miscarriages, an eating disorder, the death of my father. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And I thought, well, why the fuck am I still alive and she's not? I don't know how to explain that, except that through a series of fucking miracles, I got and then stayed sober long enough and reimagined the 12 steps, because I despised the language of them, which is also what my entire book is about, is reimagining them so that they work for you. And I practiced a new way of thinking and behaving a little bit at a time for long enough so that I now had a radical transformation in my life. And that's what I wrote about over and over every single day.
Wait, really quickly.
Yeah.
The phrase that you told me the other day about 12-step, I want to 12-step the world.
Almost.
What is it?
The girl who 12-stepped the world.
Hashtag the girl who 12-stepped the world. We're going to make t-shirts.
We are going to.
And also continue with your story. But the questions that I have for you for my own self is, how do you deal with grief right now?
Okay.
And then even an educated person who knows about the nervous system is still affected. Do you think that you are less affected because you have education on this topic? Or do you think that it's just that grief is not linear and that you just don't know how or when?
I think when my dad died, which was 4.5 years ago, I had never experienced a loss that personal to me. I did lose my first sponsor to suicide, and I loved him, and that knocked me on my ass. But it was not the same impact of grief as when I lost my dad. And when that happened, I could not sit in it. So for 2 years, I decided, well, since I'm utterly powerless over losing him, and also the way our relationship stood when he died, which was, I was still super angry, and I always showed up with a chip on my shoulder, even though I was really sober, and I had done my 4th step, and I had made my amends, and I should have been able to see him as a sick person doing the best job that he could with the tools that he had. I wasn't the best version of myself, and I was so ashamed and out of control over that ending that I decided I would control food and body. And I literally had a moment of in a flotation tank. An hour I was in there. So at the 45-minute mark, I'm 9 months into my eating disorder. Of course, I wasn't going to call it then. I was calling it, I'm losing all that baby weight. Ha ha, fuck you world. Look how skinny and cute I am. After baby number 2, by the way. So I had a whole story. Like, this is hindsight that I knew I was struggling with an eating disorder. But in that tank, I was like, 45 minutes later, after my brain was just chattering away, everything got quiet. And my little intuition said, why are you punishing me? And I was like, I literally like looked at her inside my head, like, excuse me, but I knew exactly what she meant. And I knew that for the next 15 minutes in that tank, I had better do something about that. And that was just the very beginning of a healing process and me turning toward my grief when it showed up instead of away from it.
Yes.
But that was going to still be a very long time.
Shout out to everyone that knows it's way easier to punish ourselves. It is. And we've got to love ourselves. Continue.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, punishment is, sort of a delusional form of control, right?
Yeah.
Which I understand. Like, I'm a diehard perfectionist. I'm a diehard control freak. I've been that way since the gate, since I flew out of my mom. And there is nothing that has made me feel more out of control than loss, period. And so it makes sense that we will do anything. We will make up any story. We will get our hands around anything, especially if it only hurts us and nobody else, so we don't have to feel that out of control, because it's literally too much. And by the way, on a brain level, the brain cannot differentiate between emotional pain and physical pain. So crazy amounts of grief are physically fucking painful to the body. Okay. So
I can attest to that. It literally hurts my body. Like the sadness, the anger. It's the fear, the fight or flight, it hurts.
Yeah. And that's real. That is real. It's not psychosomatic. So in the tank, I just did a meditation for the last 15 minutes. I inhaled and I said, I love you, Sam. And on my exhale, I said, I forgive you, Dad. And I did it over and over again until I felt ready to switch and say, I love you, Dad. I forgive you, Sam. And I did it again and again and again. Because if I did not forgive myself at some point for the way I showed up as his daughter up until the day he died, I would live the rest of my life punishing myself.
Yes.
And so, just like I said about my patients, like, once you see something, you cannot unsee it if you're living like a sober, mindful life. I couldn't unsee that intuitive moment in the tank. I couldn't unsee that every quarter cup of almonds that I measured was punishment for the daughter that I couldn't be. And so I slowly started to ease up. Every time I saw myself weighing and measuring and counting and pushing myself till I felt like dropping at the gym, I knew it was a sign that I was turning away from my grief, and I made small fucking attempts to turn toward it. Like, hey, you know what? I'm actually tired right now, and I don't want to do this exercise anymore. So I'm going to stop. That's it.
Absolutely.
Those are the micro moments that lead to macro changes. This is what I'm talking about. Like these tiny.
And I literally just said to you and Ricky, this person is asking this of me, and I'm still having issues with saying no. And even though knowing that I'm still recovering from something that happened 3 days ago. And it's like, if I'm going to get serious about the healing process, I have to literally do whatever it takes to get my nervous system and my whole self back into a safe place, a healthy place.
Yes. And to answer your question, you had a few of them. Having education around the nervous system is helpful. I mean, in the way of having compassion around what's happening instead of what my inner perfectionist would so easily call crazy or overreactive. Okay.
Ugh. Don't say that to people, you guys.
Okay. So it's helpful. But now, in the last year and a half, in grieving my sister, I remember in the first couple weeks, I was frightened about what would happen to me. Literally, I was like, what is going to happen to me now?
Yes.
Am I going to starve myself again? Am I going to die? Am I going to relapse? Am I going to have an extramarital affair? Like, what lengths now that the most unimaginable thing has actually fucking happened to me, am I going to go to escape my body? Like, because all bets are off. All bets are off.
Yeah.
This is the moment in sobriety where you think to yourself, I can stay sober if my sister doesn't die. And she did. Okay. So the fact that what I did, now I'm not saying I didn't find all kinds of clever ways to turn away from my grief in the last year and a half. I sure as know how to do that. And let's be real, between our phones, shopping, I mean, you fucking name it, any tiny little distraction is arguably turning away from my grief.
Sex.
Correct.
For me,
100.
I'm like calling myself out because I know that right now, because I'm so emotional, because it's about to be Christmas.
Yep.
And you and I talked about this as well. Like our first coffee date, we were talking about how I felt the same way. Like my mom did this, so am I going to end up doing it? It's just that nonstop story in your head of like, I'm not her. I'm not going to do that. But like, am I? Like, will I? Am I going to turn into that? Like, it's always second guessing our strength.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense, by the way, in the face of trauma.
Yeah.
To second guess your strength. I mean, that shit takes you to your fucking knees. You're literally not as strong until you figure out how to peel yourself up off the ground. And you have a little bit of evidence behind you that you can actually survive your most feared thing. But before you know that, it's legit to be like, I might fucking die from this. This might be it for me. This might be where my fucking story ends. And so, yes, I've turned away from my grief, but I will say that making the commitment to write. Now, everyone's like, wasn't it so cathartic? Yes. Okay. To some extent. But also, it was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
My book is a compilation of the hardest things that I have ever lived through. And I'm writing and writing and rewriting and submitting it to the world. Hey, publishing company, is this story good enough for you? And then crickets and rejection. And I keep writing and I keep writing. That was the healthiest, most incredible thing and the bravest thing that I did in the face of grief. And I've had plenty of grief. And eventually I found a publishing company that was like, this. Yes. And I have a release date for my book, which is June 10th of 2024. And at the start of this year, I was doing so little physical therapy. I was editing and re-editing with this publishing company, my book. And I just thought, whatever work I do in the world, including this book, it has to bring all of me to the table. It has to be an integrated version of my lived experience. And the one-on-one, I'm so sorry your knee hurts. Let me tell you how we can get it better, isn't it? And in that space, and also learning, arguably for the first time in my life, that I could actually stop pushing so hard and that I could plant a whole lot of seeds and stop long enough to see what was growing.
Absolutely.
And receive and then honor the call of whatever was growing that looked beautiful and interesting to me. And what has happened is I met Ricky Rebel and I became his choreographer and we went on tour in Japan in June. 40 years old with 2 babies at home. And I'm going on Japan. I mean, I am doing things now that my 19, 20-year-old, I'm going to get a record deal. Britney Spears, move out of the way. But also, I love Coke way too much. So let's just go do that. And then, it almost killed me. Let me just go get my degree. Wished that she could have done.
Yep.
And I did it.
And here's the thing. I feel like we're jumping timelines on planet Earth. And like, I said it to last night, like the fabric of Hollywood is changing. Like sexism, ageism, it's kind of like, if the Galactic Federation exists, they are literally helping us move into a new world where there is no age and we're just living in the moment. I have had an old story in my head since the day I got to LA because I grew up in a dance studio. But when you turn 25, your career's over. You know, like that's what dance people tell you. And the music is even worse. It's like, I remember the day I turned 25 and I literally was like, my whole existence is done. I'm worth nothing. So much resentment towards LA and the men that blocked me from becoming a superstar. When really it was like, hey, by the way, you're still surviving a suicide and losing your entire family and like being raped twice. And like, hey, maybe you should like take a step back and realize that the time isn't now like to be a pop star. Right now it's time to heal. And even now at this age, which I'm not even going to say how old I am, not yet, maybe someday I'll be ready, but meeting someone like you and going, wait, it's not over. So I just want to say thank you for inspiring me and for contributing to the collective with this new narrative.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of women watching my life right now feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Just being like, holy shit, dude, you're changing the narrative.
Yeah.
And then they, of course, ask me how, or they want to understand. And I don't know what to say except that the other thing that happened when my sister died is that there was a death of a massive limiting belief professionally that had been holding me back. And I didn't even know, which was, you'll start a podcast when?
Yeah.
You'll go on tour. Oh no, you missed that one. Never.
Straight up.
You will write a book once people know your name. So first you're going to go make it for some reason that we don't know yet. You're going to be famous. And then you get to do all the things you've always wanted to do. And when she died, all that fell to the floor, collapsed. And I literally made a vow to myself, and this is how I live right now. And this helps me navigate through my grief, which is one thing that you asked me now. Dear Samantha, I hereby grant you full fucking permission to do everything your little heart desires, including...
Yes, we have permission.
Not only do we have it, we must grant it to ourselves because nobody else will.
Exactly.
And we can wait forever for that moment. But you want to talk about how the steps work in my life? I am powerless over if and when the whole world will know my name like I always wished. And when I try to make that happen, my life becomes unmanageable in the following ways. Well, for starters, I feel like,
yep.
Okay. As opposed to, well, what do I have power over? Oh, because I love myself enough. And I learned to love myself when my marriage was falling apart, which was 30. I learned to love myself at 30 and I kept watering that garden. And now, in the wake of my sister's death, I really only had 2 choices. I was either going to die, a slow spiritual death, or an actual physical one, or I was going to fully fucking live, period. And I love myself so much that I grant myself permission to do whatever the fuck I want if it feels good.
So you're saying that survivors of all this stuff, suicide, rape, loved ones ODing, all this stuff, we can love ourselves and we can give ourselves permission to follow our dreams at any age, and we can be mentally and emotionally stable. Is that what you're saying?
It is. And I'll tell you something. My sister suffered from sexual abuse for years and years and years. I didn't. She did. I don't know how you explain that.
Yeah.
And I watched what happened to her. She was filled with rage. She was filled with shame. And she doused herself with drugs until she killed herself. So, I know how that story ends. Okay? So, every person who has suffered gross atrocities literally you have 3 choices. Okay? Choice number 1 is to do what my sister did. Fully available. Choice number 2 is to be half alive, which I think is arguably the worst. Okay? Which is a space where you know deep down inside of you that it was supposed to be more beautiful than this. But you keep shutting that shit down. And you end up at the end of your life saying, what the fuck was this for? Or you do what I'm doing and you say, I am going to love you through this. And it is going to be more beautiful than this. And I fucking deserve it. And this year, I have danced like a fool. I started making music. I started singing on fucking stages. My book comes out next year. I'm writing a screenplay for my book, which is going to come out next year. My book is going to be a bestseller. I'm just going to say that now so everybody hears it, because that's my level of confidence and manifesting, which I think is a combination of this kind of self-worth and confidence and sturdiness internally and actionable steps over and over in the direction of your fucking dreams. It's not some whoosh, I'm going to manifest it. Like, shut the fuck up. LA manifestation. Like, let's actually talk about.
Not me, the LA manifest.
I can't. Okay? I fucking can't.
We're being serious, you guys. Truly believe. Don't just wish for a hot piece of ass. Okay.
You know, when I think about what I'm chasing in my life right now, it's a couple things. It's legacy leaving shit.
Yes.
Okay? So if I do nothing else right in my whole life, this is going to make me cry. This book, my children will have forever. And they will know who their mother was. And they will know what I went through with no bullshit. They will know how fucking painful it was. And they will know how I got to the other side. How much more could I do? I am the one in my family lineage breaking the cycle of dysfunction, addiction, and mental illness. I'm the one.
Amen.
That is my life's purpose. I've already fulfilled it. Everything else that happens to me is a bonus. So when I go on stage and I sing like an idiot at Los Globos, I don't fucking care about the record deal. I don't care about the big swinging dick who wants to sign me. I'm already here.
Yes.
I've earned my stripes. I don't give a what you think. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to do what gives me purpose, what gives me joy, and what leaves a legacy so that my kids and their kids and their kids know that there is a way out of the darkness.
And I will tell you right now, Samantha, it is not just your children that are going to cherish that book and your story, because I'm sitting here right now, one of those girls in a corner looking at Hollywood going, I can't do it anymore. It's too scary. It's too f***ed up. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And then someone like you comes along and you're like, that is a lie. It is not the truth. It's not real. We can do this. Mm-hmm. And for that, I am so grateful. I'm going to need the book, your friendship, like 10 more people with your personality to pull me up and out of this. I mean, I know female singers that have quit because of PTSD. So this is going to definitely change way more lives than just your kids. So grateful.
I so appreciate that.
And also, I know I've given you, just the other day, I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to be able to dance again because of you. But just know, you guys, that it's a journey, and it's not just like one day you're okay. Again, like, I'm all better. I can do all of this now. It's like baby steps in small, tiny doses, and then give yourself love. And then if you need to take a step back, take a step back. But it's such a delicate journey of like figuring out what works to heal these deep wounds.
Yep. You know, there's still so much misconception around addiction. I mean, so many myths that I want to bust by the book that I wrote, but one of them is, you still go to meetings 14 years later, you still need therapy. You know what? I am in all the 12-step programs now. Okay. AA is high school. Al-Anon is college, and there's a program called ACA, Adult Child of an Alcoholic and Dysfunctional Home. So even if you didn't grow up with addicts and you just grew up in chaos, there's a 12-step program for you. I'm in all of them and therapy, because I keep hitting new spiritual bottoms that take me to my knees, because I'm awake and I'm aware. And I start to see these weird, insidious behaviors. And I know I'm dodging a bullet somewhere, or I'm doing something that feels so good, like it's getting me high, even though it's not a drug. Maybe it's a person. And then there's a crash and a depression. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what's this?
Yep.
What's this that I have to heal?
Yeah.
So I might sound, really shiny, but yes, the trajectory of my life on a graph is not like this. Phew. It would be so easy if it were. I mean, it would be so easy to paint that picture. And I really try on my Instagram page to be very honest about how it looks, which is da 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 da. Yes.
Yeah.
It's blippy and bloppy and fucking messy, and grief does not discriminate.
Nope.
About how old you are, whether it's been 5 days, 5 years. And, there's this annoying saying, the only way out is through. Mm-hmm. I know now the things that calm my nervous system deeply. I know what is soothing to me. I know the people that are steady and stable. I know what grounds me, and I also know what pulls me sort of closer into an addict type of space where I just want to feel a quick high.
Yep.
And sometimes I go that way, and sometimes I go this way. Always physically abstaining from drugs and alcohol, but sometimes I just want some retail therapy.
Right.
And other times I'm brave enough to cry and hold myself.
Tell the people where they can find you on the internet.
Okay, on Instagram, it is Strong Heart Fitness. That's my last name, Harte. One long, juicy word. And then my website is also www.strongheartfitness.com, though I'm trying to rebrand as just my name, Samantha Harte. Those are the places. I mean, YouTube, I got some stuff up there at Hearts24.
And get ready to follow her on Spotify, and all of her new songs and music videos are going to be out. This is true. So you guys can have a brand new playlist for 2024.
Boom.
And I'm sending you and Ricky a new pop playlist with current artists that are happening right now.
So there is a such thing as ageism.
Oh
I'm
God.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, there isn't. I want to give praise to the artists that are keeping the music industry going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the artists that are really giving us great music, even though we hate on the industry, it's like we got to give love to the artists that are like keeping it alive.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I love you guys so much. Samantha loves you guys so much. Have an amazing day. Do something that makes you happy.
Boom.
Give yourself a
Very
hug,
nice.
and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Mwah.